The Montana sky was painted in hues of amber as the sun slowly crept over the hills, casting long shadows across the Henderson ranch. It was just like any other morning in this quiet part of the world except for the fact that it wasn't. Emma stood in the corner of the old storage room, wiping her dusty hands on her jeans. She had been doing this for hours, trying to keep busy, trying to ignore the ache in her chest. The ache that had never fully gone away. The ache of losing everything. Her parents. Her life. Everything she had known. It had been 3 years since the accident. 3 years since she had been brought to this ranch by Mrs. Henderson. Mrs. Henderson, who was buying her a roof, food, and the things she needed to survive. But it never felt the same. No matter how many times Mrs. Henderson smiled at her or comforted her, Emma always felt the emptiness. It was like something was missing from her life. Something that could never be replaced. She bent down, pushing aside some boxes, and her fingers brushed against something cold and metallic wedged behind a loose wooden plank. She froze. Her heart seemed to stop beating for a moment. It couldn't be, but it was. It was her mother's silver phone. She thought it had been lost in the crash. She thought she would never see it again. But here it was just as she remembered it. The screen was cracked, a web of fractures spidering across her mother's smiling face in the wallpaper photo. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she picked it up carefully, her hands trembling. Could it still work? Her fingers hesitated before pressing the power button. Miraculously, the phone flickered to life, the screen lighting up just enough to show her a voice memo. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. night before the accident. The night everything had changed. Her heart raced as she pressed play. But as the speaker came to life, all Emma heard was silence. Her chest tightened, and she felt a lump form in her throat. The speaker was damaged, probably from the crash. She couldn't hear her mother's voice. She couldn't hear anything. Tears welled up in her eyes. But then, she noticed something else. Her mother's old earbuds, tangled in the charging cable. They were yellowed with age, but maybe, just maybe, they could help her hear the message. Maybe there was still a chance. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the phone. But before she could gather her thoughts, Mrs. Henderson appeared in the doorway, her weathered face softening when she saw what Emma was holding. "Oh, honey, where did you find that old thing?" "Behind the wall," Emma whispered, clutching the phone to her chest like it was a lifeline. "There's a message from Mom. I need to hear it." Mrs. Henderson's expression grew troubled, and the worry lines deepened around her eyes. "Emma, sweetie, that phone hasn't worked properly in years. The ranch hands tried to fix it after." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Maybe it's better to let sleeping dogs lie." But Emma shook her head fiercely. "No, Mrs. Henderson. This is all I have left of her. I have to try." That evening, Emma sat alone on her narrow bed, staring at the phone. She had tried every charger in the house, every speaker, every possible way to coax sound from the device. Nothing worked. The earbuds were too old, incompatible with modern devices. She was out of options. Then, she remembered the old boombox in the barn. It was ancient, but maybe, just maybe, it had an auxiliary cord that would work with the phone's ancient headphone jack. The only problem? The barn wasn't just any barn. It was Thunder's domain. Thunder wasn't just a bull. He was a monster. A huge, black bull that had terrorized the ranch for 2 years. He had injured 3 ranch hands, destroyed countless pieces of equipment, and even Mr. Henderson, the seasoned rancher, wouldn't go near him without backup. Thunder was a prisoner of his own rage and isolation, kept locked away in the largest stall, alone with his fury. Emma stood by her bedroom window, staring across the yard at the barn. The peeling red paint, the scratches and dents in the wooden walls of Thunder's violence. And yet, somewhere in that darkness, her mother's voice waited. It was the only thing that could bridge the gap between life and death, between then and now. But between Emma and that voice stood 2,000 pounds of pure fury. She touched the phone screen one more time, her fingers lingering on the image of her mother. The warm smile. The gentle eyes. The way her mother used to read her bedtime stories. Emma made up her mind. Tomorrow, when everyone was busy with the cattle auction in town, she would face Thunder alone. She would hear her mother's voice, no matter what it cost her. The next morning, she watched as the Henderson family left for the auction, dust billowing in the wake of their truck. She had claimed she felt sick, and they believed her. Her stomach churned with fear, but there was something else too: determination. A deep, burning need to hear what her mother had wanted to say. She gathered the boom box and her mother's phone, clutching them tightly. And with a deep breath, She walked toward the barn. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the earth itself was trying to hold her back. The barn stood like a cathedral of shadows, its wooden walls sagging under the weight of time. As she approached, she could hear him. Thunder. The sound of hooves striking wood, followed by a snort that seemed to shake the very foundations of the barn. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she pushed open the heavy door, the creaking hinges a scream in the morning stillness. Inside, the smell of hay and leather mixed with something darker, something wild and dangerous. Thunder stood at the far end of the barn, his massive form silhouetted in the slanted sunlight. He was magnificent, terrifying. His black coat gleamed like polished obsidian, and scars covered his flanks. His horns were sharp enough to gore a grown man in seconds. Emma's knees almost buckled as Thunder's eyes locked onto hers. It wasn't just anger she saw in them. There was something else. Pain. Loneliness. The same ache she felt in her chest. "Easy, Thunder," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. "I'm not here to hurt you." The bull snorted and pawed the ground, sending up clouds of dust. But he didn't charge. Instead, he watched her with an intensity that felt like he could see past her fear, into the very core of her. Emma's fingers brushed against the boom box on the workbench, only 10 feet from Thunder's stall. But getting to it wasn't easy. She would have to walk directly past the bull. It was a risk, the kind of risk that could end her life in seconds. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to keep walking. Her mother's phone clutched tightly in her hand. She whispered, "My mom used to say that hurt animals just need someone to understand them. I rescued a wounded hawk once. Everyone said it was too dangerous, but I knew better. I could see past the fear." As Emma inched closer to the boombox, she noticed something else: apple cores scattered near Thunder's stall. Someone had tried to befriend him. Someone had cared enough to bring treats. Emma reached the boombox, her fingers trembling as she connected the phone. The cord clicked into place, and for the first time, Emma's mother's voice filled the barn. "My dearest Emma, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone, and you found a way to listen, despite everything trying to stop you." Emma's heart hammered in her chest. The voice that had once soothed her was now revealing the truth. Everything she thought she knew about her family was about to change forever. Her mother's voice continued, each word a revelation. Emma's breath caught when she heard about the ranch's dark secret: the stolen cattle, the forged brands, the life-threatening confrontation her parents had had with Mr. Henderson. But the truth about Thunder, the bull, was the hardest to hear. Thunder wasn't a monster. He was of why temperatured by Henderson to make him wild and unrecognizable. Emma wiped her eyes, her hands shaking as the message continued. Her mother had known the truth, and she had hidden it, recording the evidence to protect Emma. But now Emma knew everything, and with that knowledge came power. Suddenly, the barn door burst open. Mr. Henderson entered, fury written across his face. 2 ranch hands flanked him. His voice was cold as steel. "Snooping around where you don't belong, little girl?" Emma stood her ground. She wasn't backing down. She held up the phone, the evidence of Henderson's crimes shining in the light. "Give me that phone," Henderson snarled. "Now." Thunder moved between them, his massive body blocking Henderson's path. Emma watched in awe as Henderson's face drained of color. "I know what you did," Emma said, her voice shaking but strong. "I know what you did to my parents. I know about the stolen cattle. And I know what you did to Thunder." Henderson's laugh was bitter. "Thunder? That animal's name is Thunder." Emma shook her head, stepping forward. "No. His name is Midnight. And you stole him, just like you stole everything else." As the tension escalated, the sound of sirens grew louder. Emma had already sent the evidence to the authorities. Henderson's plan was crumbling, but the final showdown was coming. With Midnight's help, Emma had brought Henderson to his knees. The deputies arrived, arresting the man who had destroyed her family. As Emma watched, the once violent bull, now calm, grazed peacefully on the Morrison ranch, a symbol of healing and hope. "Be brave," her mother had told her. Sometimes, the most broken souls just need someone to see past their anger to the hurt underneath. Emma smiled through her tears, the stars shining bright above her as Midnight, now free, healed just like her. Together, they had found their way back to the light. The end, or perhaps a new beginning. What do you think about the conflict and actions in the story? Comment below and share your thoughts.